Hi guys, Bolts96 here, but the O is a 0, and in today's video, as we have just surpassed the midway point in the Premier League this season, we are going to take a look at every single team and give them a grading between A star all the way down to E on how they have done so far this season at the midway point. I'm going to be looking at their performances generally against what we all pretty much expected them to do and basically how they've come away so far. So please do make sure to stick around and watch the rest of this video. Arsenal A. A for Arsenal is the first grading of this list, and I think it is entirely fair. They currently find themselves in third place and 5 points off the top of the table, so they are most definitely involved in what is proving to be one of the most open title fights in recent memory. Although they have had a couple of shaky performances this season, and they do have deficiencies within the squad, namely striker, as has been well documented, they are an excellent team, and they are massively in with a shout for first place this season. Following last season and the transfers that they made in the summer, it was felt amongst the footballing world that Arsenal would push on again from last season and push for the title yet again. I'm not sure if they have pushed on as much as we all assumed, but they are definitely performing as expected and are within reach of the title, so they have earned their A grading. Aston Villa A star. We have one of our few A stars of the list early on here, and it is with good reason. At the start of the season, I predicted Aston Villa would do well and would finish in 6th place above the likes of Spurs and Chelsea. I think this was considered a bit of an overestimation of Villa, but I knew what Emery could do as manager there, and you know what? I've been proven wrong so far. They've been even better than that. Sitting in 4th spot with a 3-point gap above Spurs in 5th, Aston Villa have been absolutely tremendous this season and are performing better than anyone expected. Excellent manager and a really strong team. I do think they will finish the season strongly. Whether that still be within the Champions League spots is another question, but for now, they've passed all the tests with flying colours. Bournemouth B. After sacking Gary O'Neill in the way that they did after the success of keeping them in the league last season, I, as well as most, thought that decision would be their downfall. But fair play to Iraola. He has brought in a different style of play and it is bloody working. The team are really playing to their strengths at the moment, and with the emergence of Solanke's sudden improvement in front of goal, they have become a real solid team in the league. The majority thought they could be in for a relegation battle, but 20 games in and they are in 12th place and 9 points clear of 18th spot. The season is going surprisingly well for them so far. Let me know in the comments if you think Solanke will still be with Bournemouth come the end of the January transfer window, and whether you think they could keep up this form without him. Brentford C. I did contemplate between a C grading or a D1 for Brentford. Ivan Toney has been a big miss for the club, and despite a positive start to the season, they have really struggled in recent months to get a consistent run of form. Sitting in 14th place after 20 games, they are lower than the likes of Fulham, Bournemouth and Wolves, and have only won 6 games so far, which is a far cry from their performances in the past couple of seasons. However, they have drawn 4 games, which means that they have earned at least a point in 50% of their games, considering again the fact that they've been missing their star man, a player who is one of the best strikers in the league, with his long-awaited return coming last weekend. I think that is a quite respectable ratio, and they are still 6 points above the relegation zone, so I think a C is fair, even if it might be a low C. Brighton B. Brighton find themselves in 8th place, just 1 point behind Manchester United and 4 points off of Europa League. They are performing exactly as I expected, which is very good, but not quite the excellent standard of last season. At the start of the season, I trusted that they would replace well and still be amongst the better teams in the league, but I did feel that the major losses in Caicedo and McAllister, coupled with the extra games from playing in Europe, would just bring their level in the Premier League down a touch, and so far, I was exactly right. Still a superb team, playing great football and getting a result in most matches, but just not quite the level of last season. Burnley E. As we find ourselves at the midway point of the season, I find myself very disappointed in Burnley. I felt like they were really building something quite special last season with new manager and squad. Then came the transfer window, and I was really impressed with the signings that they were making. Signings that felt astute and with a plan in mind, but so far that plan hasn't worked out. 19th place with 3 wins, 3 draws and a massive 15 losses is far from good enough to stay in this league, and they are going to need a drastic change in results to have any chance of pulling themselves out of it. Chelsea C. For what I expected from Chelsea after last season, a whole Argos catalogue worth of signings and a new manager, they actually aren't far from that expectation. However, that expectation was still far from what Chelsea Football Club should be, which is why I've gone for a C. They've had some good games, some good performances, and you can see hints of a young squad building together, but 9th place is a long way away from where Chelsea should be. Just to add a bit of positivity to it, though, they are still only 1 point away from the Europa Conference League and 4 points away from the Europa League. If they perform well for the remainder of the season, we could yet see them play in Europe next season. Crystal Palace D, only achieving 6 points from the past 8 games. Things are on a downward trajectory for Crystal Palace at the minute, and in 15th place, they desperately need to alter their fortunes now before it's too late. Palace have a really solid team with a trusted manager who has achieved a lot in the game. They should be playing better than this and should be finding themselves in a more comfortable position in the league, but they are rapidly getting dragged into a relegation battle. I will be very interested to see whether they can change their fortunes around, climb the table, and finish the season with a better grading than this one. Everton C. Wow, has Everton been an interesting club to follow this season? Horrendous transfer window preceded a really poor start to the season before a sudden upturn in performances and results. Climbing the table, they were then hit with a 10-point deduction for FFP breaches, pulling them into the relegation zone. Despite this, they continued to win points until suddenly the wheels came off again, having not won a game in over a month. An absolute roller coaster for the club. They are currently in 17th place and in danger of relegation, which isn't where Everton Football Club should be, but it is a familiar theme of the past few seasons. Having said that, if it wasn't for the 10-point deduction, they'd be right up in 12th spot, which is a heck of a lot better than their league positions in recent times, and is why I've not let their league position completely decide their grading in this list. Fulham C. Losing Mitrovic was always going to be huge to this football club. I'm just thankful for them that they didn't lose Palhinha in the same window, otherwise I think Fulham will be fighting for survival right about now. Instead, they find themselves in 13th spot and comfortably safe at this moment in time. It has been quite a mixed bag at Fulham in terms of results, but they've done pretty decently and have played well enough with the absence of a striker who scored 14 goals in the league for them last season. And before we jump on to the next one, just a quick reminder to press that subscribe button if you're enjoying the content. Liverpool A star, the second team in this list to earn an A star grading, and without seeming biased, it is my team. I felt Liverpool were always going to have a pretty good season, definitely one better than the last, but they have been performing far above expectation, which is why I've gone for the top grading. After a complete overhaul of the midfield, this was supposed to be a transitional season, but being 5 points clear at the top of the table, having only lost one game, that game being the refereeing nightmare and robbing against Spurs early in the season, is far from transitional. They haven't always played every game to the top of their level, but they have still managed to grind out wins in nearly every one of those games, and that's the sign of a title winning team. There is still half of the season to go and plenty could change come May, so make sure to let me know in the comments who you think will win the league this season. But for now, they've been the best team in the league. Luton D. I was tempted to give Luton a C grading, but they are in the relegation zone. I can't be doing that. The truth of the matter is, though, is that virtually everyone expected Luton to get absolutely annihilated this season by everyone they come up against, and that just hasn't been the case. 4 wins and 4 draws from 20 games is much better than most would have predicted, and at the moment, they are the only team who came up from the Championship this season who are really competing to get out of the relegation zone. If they can turn some of the memorable performances against big teams in the first half of the season into results in the second, they could actually survive the campaign yet. Manchester City A. This season has been considered a bit of a hit and miss for City, which just says something about how utterly world class this team is. Having lost only 3 games so far this season, they found themselves in second place, 5 points behind Liverpool, but with a game in hand. With KDB's return and Haaland coming back, it feels City are really going to go all guns blazing in the second half of the season. Whether someone else in this title challenge can stave them off and win the league will be very interesting to see, and it will be an incredible accomplishment for whichever team manages to pull it off. if they can. City feel like they are really hitting their stride as we come to the end of January, and it is going to take quite a surprising drop-off for that to change before the end of the season. Manchester United, C. Manchester United, average, inconsistent, and always a topic of discussion. It has been the same story for years now. They find themselves in the 7th spot at the moment, which isn't absolutely horrendous for this team at the halfway point, and particularly as we all spend most of our time when discussing United debating just how badly they've been performing. At the end of the day, they are managing to scrape some results together and are holding on to their place in at least one European competition for now, and that is a positive. They are, however, 11 points off the Champions League spots, which is definitely where Manchester United should be. It would take a miracle for them to break into there now. Newcastle United, D. What has happened to Newcastle United this season? They started it well, and yes, they have had injuries and players missing, but sitting in 10th place with 10 losses and 14 points off of Aston Villa in 4th for the richest club in the world, and a team who achieved Champions League qualification last season, is an astronomical drop off. If this form continues, you'd wonder how long Eddie Howe has left before they give him the chop. I personally think that would be the wrong decision, and I think he will turn the fortunes around, particularly when they get some of these players back. But they need to put a serious graft into the second part of the season to make amends to their current situation. Nottingham Forest, D. I predicted better for Forest going into the season. They had an excellent end to their first season back in the Premier League in over 2 decades, and with what I consider to have been a really good transfer window, I just thought they'd build on that end of season form and begin to cement themselves as a mid-table club within the Premier League. That hasn't really happened. In 16th place and 4 points above the relegation zone, they should definitely be doing better than this and should have more wins under their belt. Underperforming, and with Premier League survival on the line, they need to improve, and quick. Sheffield United, E, the last of the promoted teams, and boy, has it been a horror show by Sheffield United so far. 2 wins, 4 draws and 15 losses, resulting in 10 points from 21 games. They have been very, very poor this season. I thought they would struggle, so maybe they are performing as expected. It's just a shame for them that expectation is relegation. They've just not shown that they deserve to stay in this league at the end of the season. Poor results, poor performances. I don't see a change to their fortunes or a way out for them. Comment down below if you agree, or if you think they can in fact pull off a miracle and stay in this league. Spurs, A. We were all intrigued to see just how well Tottenham Hotspur would do without world-class Harry Kane leading the line for them. The answer, it seems, is pretty darn well. They currently find themselves in 5th place, but only 3 points off 2nd place and 8 points off the top. For a manager's first season in the Premier League, never mind just at this club and the changes they have had to that team, that is a phenomenal position to be in at the halfway point. Yes, there have been some poor games, but they have come few and far between, for the most part, having got a result in 16 of their 21 games in the 23-24 season thus far. They've done very well, and if they can keep it up, I do in fact tip them to pinch a Champions League spot. West Ham, A. Yet another A grading here, and I think West Ham more than deserve it. After an absolutely awful season last season, which was sugar-coated by the win in the Europa Conference League, going on to lose Declan Rice after that season could have led to ruin for this team. But you know what? They've spent the money very wisely across a number of positions and have begun to rebuild that outstanding team from a couple of seasons ago. There are still improvements to be made, but sitting in 6th place above the likes of Manchester United, Brighton, Chelsea and Newcastle United is absolutely huge for this team, which is well above their pay grade. Technically, their highest ever finish in the Premier League was 5th place, but that was in a season where the likes of Sheffield Wednesday, Coventry City and the now dissolved Wimbledon were in the Premier League. So if they can hold on to that 6th place position when this season ends, I'd say it will be their greatest ever finish in the Premier League. Wolves, B. Wolves lost the entire spine of their team and more in the summer transfer window just gone, as well as their manager. I did not see good things in their future, but I tell you what, 11th place with 8 wins, 4 draws and just 8 losses is an absolutely superb showing from this depleted side. They made a few decent signings come the end of the window. Gary O'Neill has moulded them into a real positive playing team. They are performing above their station at the moment and could yet pull themselves into the top 10 if a couple of those big teams who are underperforming don't manage to turn their fortunes around. There we go, guys. Hopefully you do agree with my gradings, but please do let me know down in the comments and tell me if you don't agree. And please do remember to like and subscribe and check me out across all my other socials. I am on Twitch, X, Instagram and TikTok, all under the same handle, Bolts96, but the O0. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you on the next one.